Hello everyone. I've been saying I'll do a video for a while and obviously not getting around to it because I never get around to anything. But yeah, I'll just do a quick one now. This is going to just be high time frame and to try and be quick. Um, because I don't want to, I need to think more about the lower time frames and zones I'm looking at. And I haven't had a chance to do that as yet. But yeah, I just want to show some of the things I'm seeing on the macro and some of the discrepancies I guess we're seeing that I need to think through a little more. But so just start with the dominance charts. So US dollar dominance, which is obviously is the one I follow the most. We had this 2 month demand. I was looking for. I've taken my drawings off just because it's too messy on the high time frames with the drawings in there. But so we were looking for that tap onto the 2 month demand here for another push up, which is what we've got. Um, and yeah, that was kind of been marked out for a while, so I hope you've been watching that. Um, Within that, again, still a bit too messy here. So we had a 2 week supply here, which is where we got the rejection previously coming down into the 2 months. So we're now heading back up in that direction. Um, and what I'm looking for here, so the next zone that I was interested in, and again, I haven't looked at this in enough detail yet for the confluence with other charts, but there's a 5 day supply up here inside the 2 week. So that would be the next level I'm looking at as the sort of, if we're looking at a downtrend, this is our sort of local downtrend. Um, so I'm looking for it to sort of break this high to break that downtrend. And obviously it can do whatever it wants in between, but the 5 day is the next kind of area that it might see some resistance in there. We obviously had the break of trend here, and my only concern with this up move we've got here is it's just a little bit corrective. It's not. So while I was always bullish on this because we came off 6 months demand at the lows, then we made this 2 month, which we've now held, which is good. We still have 3 month supply, which we didn't quite tap up there, and then this monthly, which we've swing failed here. So I mean, all of the charts are really just kind of in these corrective triangle formations, and it's for me, it's not overly clear still. So I'm just trading level to level, and that's why you have all the black crosses in here. Um, just it's not overly clear whether we're going to break up or break down, and we can see that obviously on Bitcoin because what Bitcoin's been doing recently. Yeah, so obviously we had a good bounce off this low here. I'm looking now for reaction on this 5 day, and then also if we can create a 5 day demand in here, if we get, I mean, it's still 2 days to the close, but if we get a close above there, then we'll get some decent support, um, potentially for more of a push higher, and then even potentially up into this 3 month. So obviously, yeah, bullish on US dollar dominance for the time being. But we're still at the point of, we've got to make a higher low in here and start to see an uptrend form on the daily, because at the moment we're still in that last down move. So it could still, at this point, it could still, make a lower low from the daily perspective. So indecisive, but got that solid support at the lows. Um, that was US dollar dominance. So Bitcoin dominance obviously is still going up as well. And the difficulty is that, if US dollar dominance goes up and Bitcoin dominance goes up and Bitcoin dominance still has support, then you've got basically what that means is alts are dying, which obviously we know. Bitcoin dominance has come into the 3 month supply, showing no sign of rejection as yet and approaching these 2 week levels just above. So that's kind of interesting. I don't tend to look at this so much other than just to sort of generically see where it is, but I don't necessarily trade it because I mean it's just been crawling up for the past 2 years nearly now. Um, but what we obviously can see is Ether dominance is dying, Ether Bitcoin is dying, but again coming into levels of support down here potentially. Again, it's in 2 month demand. There's a 3 month demand a little bit lower, so it will be interesting to see what Ether dominance does when it gets there. Others' dominance is just ugly. We talked previously about having a bounce on this weekly demand there, which we got, but it just went into supply here, and is now heading lower and breaking this macro trend line on the log scale. On the linear scale, we're still inside, but on the log scale, we're starting to see that breakdown there, which is slightly worrying. And then the other problem I have now is that there aren't really good levels of support. So potentially here, I'm looking for a retest on that 6 month level there, but that's really a long way down for others' dominance, and alts have died so much already. But also on this, we now also have a monthly supply put in, and on quite a few alts, we see this similar structure of this monthly supply. So even if we do get another bounce, then it's likely to not get very far. So this is not very good for the alt market from what I see at the moment. And total DeFi dominance is basically the same. It's still looking quite ugly. I haven't put the monthly supply in on this, but there's a monthly supply in there. Um, and obviously two weeklies was already made anyway. And again, like where are we expecting the bounce on this? Um, I thought I put an alert in on this earlier. Actually, maybe it's on the market cap chart, but again, potentially down. This is a 5-day or a 4-day down here, but this can go, obviously a significant amount lower before we see a decent point of support for it. But overarchingly, with all those dominance charts, it's then sort of showing, well, okay, Bitcoin dominance is still going up, and while it's in supply, isn't showing as yet any signs of doing anything with supply. And then similarly, US dollars dominance has hit a major demand level. So while it does have a lot of supply that could slow it down above here, um, what we're going to see, I think, is alts falling, and it's still tentative as to whether Bitcoin is going to continue going up. It's possible that Bitcoin continues going up, and we see US dollar dominance still go up as well because of alts doing so badly. Um, so yeah, that's very concerning for alts anyway. So I think just be really careful if you're buying, if you're going long on anything, and be aware of the supplies. I'll get to it. I'll quickly run through the majors at the end of this so we can see. But yeah, so let's have a quick look at the total charts. So similarly, we have total itself. It's got this same flip of 2 months demand, but very, very weakly that Bitcoin has. So we've managed to close above there, but we haven't had a wick that taking out the high. So this is not a strong demand. A few of the alt charts are showing a similar structure to this, like Sol, for example. Excuse me. But again, like I'm not necessarily overly confident this is going to bounce. It's really going to be very dependent on whether Bitcoin's going to bounce as well. So this obviously total is the strongest because Bitcoin's been the strongest. Um, but then relatively compared to the Bitcoin chart, this is obviously a lot weaker. We're still holding inside that broadening wedge. We've got, the 2 months demand, a 2 week demand a little bit lower in a 5-day here. So it's looking for support to be found through that level for another push. But it's difficult, and again a pity because this isn't showing that same strength as Bitcoin. Um, Total 2 is obviously weaker again because of the fact Ether's weaker. So this is total market cap excluding Bitcoin, but still including Ether and everything else. So again, this has hit 2 monthly supply, in fact, and is falling from there. It's had a couple of tests on this 2 week demand and is looking like it's going to break down that trend line now. And again, we're seeing similar on a lot of alts, just tapping the trend line on the linear and just slightly over on the log scale. Um, but again, starting to make supply here. And again, my bias is, once you've had 1, 2, 3 tests on this demand, I'm not overly confident this demand is going to continue to hold. Um, and we see similar reflected in Ether, which again I'll get to. Total 3, same again, but again weaker because we're seeing alts coming down much more. Again, those 3 hits on this demand here, and if we fall off this trend line, then we've got a real risk that this is going to, based on the fact it's coming off monthly supply. So on the higher time frame, when you look at this, it's bounced on monthly demand and it's coming off monthly supply. So yes, we can hold monthly demand on a second test here, but there is a very real possibility it can go all the way down to back to the lows and the start of this move. So again, be very careful. This is very high time frame, so it could take a year to do that, but it's very possible. Others I've been saying the same for a while anyway. And again, that was kind of what I had as the dramatic fall. But is it really that dramatic? We've had this big up move and we've now basically, is this simply an A, B, C wave? And here, even then, is, it's basically a triangle correction if we bounce there. But if we have a zigzag ABC, this wave could still come all the way back to here, which is where I would have preferred it in the first place. So again, bit of a risk for alts, and obviously alts have died significantly already. But yeah, again, just saying all this just to be conscious of being wary of holding on to any alts, long if the structure's there and if you're looking at one of the stronger coins. But on the plus side, I guess we've got a slower down move here. But again, starting to break trend and things like that. And we haven't got that retail participation in the market at the moment, for necessarily supporting FOMO entries, etc. So again, not while this could have gone into the monthly supply. I think this didn't test monthly supply. That was my only. It did an immediate test here, but then a lot of alts again we saw rejecting off 3 week and the 2 week supply here. This is a lot of what the alt structures, many of them look like, where they rejected here rather than making it back up into there, showing their relative weakness. Another weekly supply made, which we're now coming off. And again, like if we can't hold a second or third hits on these supports, then this is where we're looking for the bounce. And that's going to kill a lot of alts. And I am seeing that while I've seen a lot of alts hit support today, and I've had a lot of alerts go off. And some of them are decent 3 month, 1 month zones. I'm also seeing a lot with monthly supply, a lot with which are going to make new weekly supply. Many of them have the 3 day locally, which they're rejecting off now. And and I've always said, a lot of alts just rejected this major rejection that they're doing of is just following a downtrend basically. It's hard to say, hard to give these examples without actually showing proper examples, but like I say, I'll have a quick look at the majors in a minute, and then I can show some better examples. Similar thing on Total DeFi. Yeah, this is where I put the alert because that would be the next weekly demand, and then the 3 months underneath that. But this would be where I'm expecting this to head for at this point. Another break of trend. It's a sort of cleaner chart. So we'd like to see this come down, back test, and then potentially have another fall into this weekly or into the 3 month below. So yeah, those are all the high time frame charts. The Bitcoin itself, I've been looking at a lot of different levels through here. So again, like I said, like we saw on the total chart, we have this flip. So we had 2 months supply, which was a week supply. When it closed below here and it came up and it tapped into this a few times, but eventually came up through it. It's closed above the 2 month candle, so we do have the possibility. Excuse my alerts just flashing up each time I go over them, but we do have the possibility of it testing here and holding. But I don't like this wicking above. Again, that makes this a weak demand. So while it was a weak supply and it came back through it, it's now a weak demand. But those are the levels that we're next looking at for potential long entries. So we had the aggressive, I think I mentioned in my last update that I was looking for this area today to hold and potentially to fill. So we had a higher CME gap up here that got filled, and then we have this lower one down here. So I'd like to see this filled and then possibly a bounce. I've also put another alert back up here for a possibility of rejecting off 12 hour supply. But again, we're still at this point in an uptrend, so this is still a high risk short entry for that to happen. So we'd need to see what happens as and when we get up there. Preferably, we would want before this test, we would want this to break support. But again, the challenge and why I need to think this through and said I didn't want to look at lower time frames, particularly now, is that we have this. So we have the 2 month demand, we have a monthly demand in here. We have a 2 month is a bit lower by this cross, and that was where I had the previous entry that I've talked about, which was on the 5 day demand, which coincided quite nicely with the 2 week level on CME. So I've got an alert just above the 2 week here, but the possible entry here, which is a nice confluence with the 70% fib. Then down here, I think we had a 12-hour untested. I'm not sure about that anymore because it's been so long since we've come in that area, and we have another CME gap below. And then previously I had a 4-hour down here, which didn't get tested from back here, which is what that wick I wanted to test into here, but it didn't. But we have all these CME gaps below, and obviously, like we don't have to fill them immediately. And as you can see, we haven't filled them immediately. but yeah, sort of running the risk now. So while we're still in an uptrend here, a local uptrend, we have taken out the structure from here. So this was our last down move. We have taken that out, but we're still very much in this range. We've rejected just short of all-time high, but we have had the ETF chart and CME have taken out all-time high on a swing failure. So it's not ideal seeing this swing failure here. Like really, we wanted that to be breaking out before coming back for this test. Um, but yeah, like I say, that we're just looking for this level to hold and then just some difficulty because there's so many other possible levels and a lot more if you go to the low time frames through here. Um, so really it's like waiting for these levels to hit and seeing what reaction we get. But I want to wait till Monday plays out at least and see what we get from there because also we have a lot of the indices are correcting quite heavily now. And but it could just be October profit taking. So it's unclear. Um, yeah, so I'm going more of the black crosses now because the situation is unclear. Okay, so these, yeah, I should comment. These I was looking for swing fails of the key levels to the left. I did actually have a final entry on the lower time frame in my detailed premium chart for a short. I'll show you quickly up in this 4 hour supply up here. So obviously that worked out quite nicely, but would have been difficult to take and high risk because it was coming up so strongly. But yeah, I was looking for swing fails here, which we didn't. Well, eventually we got a bigger stop hunt, but yeah, it sort of ran through those two levels. This 8 hour here, I think I commented in my previous update, was a possibility of a short as well. It only got a tiny move, and the again, Korea was one of the other things I commented in my last update. Korea can be a lot cleaner. So, as most people know, I follow Korea quite a lot because it can be a lot cleaner than the US dollar chart, where it's got less stop hunting, etc. So, it has the same monthly demand, 2 monthly demand, 3 day, which it's just tapped off the top of on this last drop. But it had more cleanly broken the trend and was back testing the trend line. And then when I looked at that, if we compare the 8 hour here to what was happening here, which is why I say always keep an eye on Korea. Um, so we're looking at this cross was at this area. So this was clearly a lot stronger at that point. You can see this had dropped and was still potentially in a triangle, whereas this really was just pushing ready for a breakout. So that was ended up being a fail from well, at least a higher time frame fail, or could have given a little scalp, and that's about it. Um, not perfect. What else can I say on Bitcoin? So, US dollar dominance, put that one back because that's I always look at these four together. I look at US dollar chart, Korea chart, CME, and US dollar dominance. Um, the CME chart, so like I said, we have this close down here. Price is probably somewhere around here at the moment, and we'll see how what happens. I can delete this now. This was one of the CME gaps that we wanted to see filled. The main thing with the CME chart is it has closed just about with a weekly demand in here. So we still see a reasonable amount of support, but we still have the swing fail of this high. So again, it's got that challenge. If you trade, you can trade the swing fail of the high and assume that that's a stop hunt of the high, and that again runs the very big risk of now going down right down to the bottom of the range because it's taken out stops of all those highs. Now it's going to take out stops of all the lows. So that's the risk here. But then again, we have monthly demand, 2 monthly demand. But again, I'll be looking around that 62 mark. If we get a test down there, that's where I really want to see hold. On around that 2 month level. Um, and then yeah, so like I say, okay, we also have a few other bits and pieces just to be aware of. So the grayscale chart is still quite weak. So this grayscale Bitcoin chart is obviously much weaker than the Bitcoin chart itself. Still has some support through here, but obviously nowhere near breaking this 2 month supply. Would have to be up here relatively. So it's kind of interesting to see the weakness there, filling this gap here. So again, just need to see what demand holds through there. And then also when we look at the other ETFs, we've got IBIT as the sort of main one that I chart because they all basically look the same. We've got again that slight swing failure of the high there, but we do have the flip of the 2 month demand in here. So again, want to see this come down into the 2 month demand and see that hold. That's really critical for me. And if I start to see, if we go into here, that's like we can go all the way down to the bottom of this 2 month if we want to. And based on that swing failure, that's also very possible. But we want to see, put that on that monthly actually. We want to see ideally here a hold if we're going to continue to be very bullish. On the ETFs again, I've already commented on those a few times. Always, it's just very interesting to watch. And like, we don't have enough history to make, the sample size is still small, and we don't have the history to make proper judgments on this. Or I have been tracking it, and I've got some little charts that I've shared previously. But we have BlackRock buying heavily through all the last couple of weeks, and then we had so let me show you the other one. The other, I know that's the Ether one. Um, damn pop-ups. If we look at this, so you have two options here where you can just see the October data, or you can see if you click on the link at the bottom here, you can see all the data. You can tell I've been looking at buying furniture my spam advertising that I'm getting. So here we've got BlackRock in the first column, Fidelity, Bitwise, ARK. So they're kind of the major ones I look at, and then Grayscale is in the major one is in the second last column. So up until the 31st, Thursday, we had a lot of heavy buying from BlackRock. At the beginning, the first few days of last week, we had some decent buying from Fidelity, Bitwise, and ARK, but they then started selling in the last couple of days. And it's just been interesting and I'm interested to see how it plays out. If BlackRock ETF buyers, I don't know who they are versus who they would be for Fidelity, if they're the same type of people or if they're very different types of people. Um, but it's very interesting because if you go back through all the history, BlackRock are shockingly bad at buying the top. And these guys, Fidelity, Bitwise, and ARK, tend to be a bit better. They don't tend to FOMO in at the tops. They tend to buy, maybe midway up a rise, and then they have been able to start selling at the tops. But is it them pushing the price down? Very possibly. But they seem to be more, I guess, maybe risk averse or just trading the range. Maybe BlackRock knows something I don't. Price is going to be at 100K in a couple of weeks' time, and BlackRock are going to be laughing. Not dissimilar to Michael Saylor, who we all laugh when he goes heavily underwater and then is now, I think, billions in profit because he's able to hold on for longer. Um, but yeah, it's just quite interesting to see, the history that we do have when BlackRock is buying super heavily. It normally indicates a top. And that is what we've seen again this time. So um, more alerts coming in. Um, yeah. So anyway, like what we're really looking at is just come back down to. So we've got this range here, and we've got weak supply now flipped into weak demand, and we're just looking for mid range to hold and to see if we're going to get that extra push. Um, and like I say, then for that to be the case, let's just go back and look at um, the US dollar dominance chart. If that was to hold mid-range, and that could tally actually with this pushing up. So because the structure of this is normally the inverse to Bitcoin, but is now slightly different, this could tally with that pushing up into the 3 month supply. So again, it'll be, if we see, Bitcoin decline, alts decline a lot, then it's possible this can make it all the way up there. And alts would have to like drop a significant amount for that to happen. Maybe not all the way up there, maybe even just up to here. I think there's obviously 12 and 8 hour supply in here. Maybe we'll just get that lower high here. So it'll be interesting to see. Um, so yeah, like I say, just to summarize, I guess I'm not very decisive on this. I'm like I say, I'm trading level to level, looking for those levels that I've mentioned on Bitcoin to hold, and then looking at whether this is going to continue, whether this is going to start making a new local uptrend, having corrected this last up move. Ether, oh, wrong chart. Ether's just been thoroughly disappointing, really. I'm going to delete these CME gaps because that's what I wanted to see close, which we had. So we had CME Ether close the gap at the end of the week. But let me see. I actually haven't looked at this. Yeah, it's still in again. Ether's just a difficult one again. We came off this monthly demand at the bottom, and I was pretty bullish on that, but it really hasn't gone anywhere for now. A good couple of months. We had this gap up here, which was primed to be filled, but hasn't. And it really, Ether's just not looking that happy. I was likening it to this structure over here, but again, I wanted that final push, similar as we had this push here to go up into this 2 month supply. But now Ether's like really resembling a lot of the other alts with these trend line stops through here, CME gaps throughout. It's got a lot of CME gaps lower as well, but yeah, these CME gaps throughout this double bottom here. So I'm not convinced now this isn't going to take out the monthly demand. So I've got no long entries through here at the moment because it's just not clear enough. There's nowhere I would want to long unless we see these lows taken out. Or unless we see something locally in here. But at the moment, now we've just got weak supply, weak demand. All the demand is weak because we're unable to take out this high. Um, so the normal US dollar chart basically, yeah, like I say, is the same thing. We had this 2 week supply up here, or yeah, weekly, no, 2 week supply. We made a 2 week demand, but it's by a hair, and we've barely been able to hold them without just falling deeper and deeper inside it. We've got these CME gaps, one just below that low. So I mean, possibly you could look for a swing fail of that low. I mean, really, the only entries here now are for swing failures. There's no solid untested demand because of the triangle structure. Um, I thought we were going to get, after we broke this triangle and it wasn't so clean on this, but it was cleaner again on Korea. Thought we might get another push. Um, but no. Still managed. So I did again on the ether chart. It was quite unclear. I think I've hidden the entry now, but I was saying, I wanted to see these stops here taken out, potentially into that zone. But it did push higher. No, actually, it was the stops above there. So I was looking for a swing fail of those stops. And again, we got the high time frame swing failure, but it was a bit hard to get that entry up there for the short. Excuse me. Terrible cough again at the moment. But yeah, so this triangle is now no longer a triangle, but it's sort of faked out the triangle a couple of times. And again, now we're just looking at potentially the break of this trend line to drop again into monthly demand. And I think the next entry is down here. This was the 3 month level, which is the next level I would look at if we got a significant drop on Ether, which is not looking like particularly unlikely at the moment. Ether Bitcoin again, just not seeing the bounce. So we were tracking the go back over here. So I was following and tracking this broadening wedge that we had here, which was basically very similar to this, this broadening wedge that we had here. Um, take that off and see it a little bit more clearly. And then we're now in this, if we're following sort of similar structure to there, we're now in this similar decline. We've got the same decline here. But again, like the levels were just not overly clear. There's too many of them. So we had a monthly. We got a bounce just above the monthly at the top, and then a few bounces inside, a few local breaks of trend, which didn't hold. Then we hit the 2 month, didn't really give much. Now in 3 day inside the 2 months, still not giving much. And then we have this 3 month down here, which I think I've alerted, but may not have refreshed this chart to show it. But yeah, so again, just got to be patient with this. I mean, it's taking its sweet time, I have to say. And even then, like the structure isn't really ideal. Like I mean, maybe comparing it to this, but this structure is very, very different to that structure. Um, but yeah, we're starting to come at the beginning of this impulse. So potentially, yeah, looking for that bounce coming into the start of that impulse. And I know a few people have done similar analysis on this. But yeah, so not much more to add there until we actually see the bounce. So while I can watch levels and alert levels for potential bounces, we still need to actually see something on the lower time frames to indicate that that bounce is going to happen. And if you look back at that comparative area, and the timing of this, I was one of the other reasons I wanted to talk about it is because we were looking at August, September 2019. Um, it was similar to the correction we had just before COVID, which is what I was comparing our local top to. Um, but it's still coming into Christmas and December, January is when we tend to see an up move on ETHBTC and Ether itself. And some of the like here, for example, we had just a couple of weeks, and then other times, well, from here this was marked the bottom, and then this one again significant up move at the end of 2020. So the end of the year tends to be a good time for possible bounces on Ether. So here 2017 December, um, 2016 is a bit later January, and January, February, March is when we started to get that massive up move there. So can't really 100% rely on time, but it has been quite nicely aligned with what we did here in 2018, 2019. Yep. So just got to wait a bit longer on that. I don't think there's much more to say on Ether. Like I said, there's nowhere I want to long on this right now. And again, if I short, it would be up back in this 2 month supply if we ever look at like going in that direction. If I can actually see, some supply break and us to start, I mean, okay, yes, we have a mini local uptrend here. Um, Let me just go back onto this chart. So yes, we have a local uptrend. We have some higher lows here, but now we have a lower high, so we expect a lower low. So you can look for that CME gap to close and a possible swing fail there. Um, well, I might alert that. I'll see, but just for an intraday scalp. But overall, I'm not overly confident that that's going to hold. But that's one possibility there. And then, CME gap that we had at the bottom of here could also be closed, and that's again one of my why I lack confidence. So I think that's not much more that can be said on Ether. The majors, again, I'll quickly run through. I didn't do proper analysis on these, but I did give quite a lot of entries or possible entries, some of which have worked out really quite nicely. So I did an update, I think, here end of October, I believe. Um, so EOS and I also commented, I think, when I did that update that we might make some weekly and monthly supplies. So, and in some cases I looked, I added a new entry because we spent, a little bit of time up here and I thought we might get a second push into the new weekly. But actually in most cases we didn't even get that. So EOS, I had an alert on daily supply there, nice rejection straight down from there. I currently have a new alert here on a weekly, and then we have a new monthly supply on this as well. So again, I need to revise what my entries are up here for potential shorts. Obviously, EOS is looking now like it's going to break that low again, and this is all-time low for EOS, so I get no long entries on this. BCH was one of the stronger ones, and one of the ones you could have had more hope for because we had a bounce at the low on 3 month demand down here. The problem with BCH is we also left this whole potential stop run under there. Um, so there was always a big risk of going back there. And I have another alert here for the 1 month demand, and my alerts are always slightly above where the level is, so there's some time to look for an entry. But I had another alert on the 1 month demand, but I think I've disclaimed that the risk of running through all the trend line stops below here if we get down there. This, like I say, was one of the stronger ones. It didn't actually. Yeah, so when I discussed this in the last update, I think we had the long entry that had just hit. Said I hadn't put a short entry in because we still had this 2 week demand. It was just short of the monthly supply that I would have preferred to be hit on there, and it just swing failed that high. Didn't quite hit the monthly supply. As a result, it's still in a sort of higher low structure, so I would still have a potential long entry on this untested zone just coming, we're just about to come into. But again, you'll see on all the majors, they've all got these sort of trend line stops below, and some of them are really now starting to break down heavily. Litecoin, again, I think I said in the last update that, we had the long entry here because we had a 2 week demand. I was hoping to get up for either taking the stops above these two highs or up into monthly supply up here. And again, didn't get high enough, but I didn't have a local short on that. The other thing with Litecoin and Link, I think was the only other one, is because we made this new daily demand and because we hadn't tested up here at this point, I thought there was a possibility Bitcoin was going to keep going. And therefore I put aggressive long entries on Litecoin and Link, and both of them failed. And it is what it is. This is looking like now it's going to make a week to weekly supply by closing below here. So again, like I say, I need to look through these and do the updates. But similar to Ether, we've now had all this demand tested. We're rejecting supply, significant supply, um, and like sort of resistance level from this previous up move. And I think I've said a number of times in the past, I haven't really liked any of, we've got so many wicks down on Litecoin that I haven't been overly confident that it's going to bounce anywhere and not go all the way back down now to 37 or so. Um, However, I do have a tentative long entry in just for the higher low down here. If we did take out all those stops and still manage to hold daily demand in there, that is a possibility. And there's a clean daily demand through there. So assuming the whole market doesn't really go to hell, that's a possible long entry there. But I would also be considering now, like we've got a daily supply. A lot of these majors as well, actually, this is not so clean, but a lot of them have a 3-day supply, which has either tested and rejected or is ready for being tested and rejected. So again, a lot of local shorts are possible on the 3-day supplies. This has a daily, is going to have a daily supply, and we'll have the 2-week as well. So again, there's a very possible short on that. Ripple has actually created a monthly supply. So let's just quickly look at the monthly chart. Has been, very poor. So it didn't get much of a bounce after supposedly having the lawsuit dropped. And then the lawsuit got picked back up again, which dumped it again, although not very much. So it's become much less volatile. Now it does have a monthly supply up here. So that's probably like my entries are more aggressive for shorts on this. But I need to, yeah, like I say, revise where they are at the moment. But I think we had a monthly supply and then we have a 2-weekly supply in there. We're going to have another 2-week made today at this level. It's too messy. And again, that's why I wanted to just do a quick video on these so I can actually start hiding some of the old previous entries and things like that. I think again, when I last posted, we just had the bounce on here. So it did get a nice up move, but again, straight back into the daily supply that I highlighted for you in the last post. Now also 3-day supply. It actually needs to confirm that hasn't quite closed below. A lot of these are 3-day or 4-day, so that's going to probably confirm a 4-day supply there in a few hours' time. And yeah, so Ripple again, like there's nowhere I really want to be longing now. Like yes, it could come down into this hourly here, which I think I commented before, or maybe I commented in the alert that I had on this that there is an hourly at the base of here. It's possible for a bounce, but now we'll be looking for it to come and test this monthly. And take out that wick potentially because it's been unable to make a higher high. So when we look at structure, I'm looking at, what was the demand able to do? So we had a decent move off this demand, but it was unable to break supply, which has been repeatedly holding up here. So therefore, I don't necessarily expect a higher low. We got the first higher low, and even that was unable to break supply. Then this one, and now supply is just getting stronger and pushing it down further. So um, I've got stink bids on this, and I think they run from. I think I wasn't overly confident of this one, and I'm like real stink bids. I think mine are running like really down here in the 25 to 30 cent region. Um, so yeah, and yeah, these major structures, we're like you can see now, we're breaking this major trend line. From well, it broke previously, came back above. Let me just have a quick look at the. Okay, so the linear chart, we're still holding it. But the log chart is broken. So again, possible we get that bounce and holding through here, and it still holds that lower trend line. But again, we tried to break these upper trend lines coming out just above. Sorry, it's so messy. I don't even know how easily you can see this, but you can see we tried to break some of these local trend lines in here and coming out above. And Ripple's great for that. It's great for doing fake outs to the upside of triangles and then just going screw you and falling back inside. So again, I lack confidence for Ripple and really would like to see a bigger down move. Yeah, that's all the old majors, and the new majors really have a very similar picture. BNB is obviously one of the stronger ones, but I think I said before I was short biased on this because we had monthly supply. It's finally rejected. Didn't get the best entries on this, so I had a 2-day supply alert on the original. This 2-day supply here. But then I had a couple of when I shared in my last post, I had a couple more aggressive. We had a trend line break. Let me just go down to the lower time frame again. We had a trend line break here. I think on the linear. So yeah, the black cross is where we broke the trend. So then I looked for a retest aggressive entry, but it only gave a couple of small candles down before pushing up. And then there was another 2 day supply in here, which I had the other entry on, but it actually turned out it wicked through, but held this original 2 day supply up here for now the bigger drop. Yeah, so that wasn't ideal short entry on that. If you had a wider stop, you would have been okay, but if you tried to tight stop that, that wouldn't have worked. Um, and again, like yeah, so again, need to look at what the if these major trend line breaks, like this is where my next alert is down at $300 on BNB. But again, just not loving what we have in between. We have a monthly supply. So again, if we just look at the high time frame on this, if I see a rejection like that on monthly supply, it's not the strongest monthly supply, but because we wick quite down quite heavily from that, but it is a rejection on monthly supply. So then I would look at buying monthly demand, which is all the way down here. So I know people will cry about me saying that, but if I see something different, that's fine. But at the moment, that's kind of what you expect. We're going to make another 2 week supply in here, similar to what I showed you, I think, on Litecoin. So it's just not looking overly promising. In its favor, I guess, this is a whole lot of chop, so it's becoming, increasingly hard to read. And a lot of the majors I've just been kind of going, oh my God, same as Ether, like I just don't know where now to start putting entries. Okay, we have a daily demand in here, so we could get this holding 518. So that's worth watching to see if you're going to get a scalp back up here. But again, we're just going to go straight back into 2 weekly supply. So not something I particularly want to be longing. Again, if we see something different, if we start to see a range form through here, if it holds here, then great. Maybe we're going to start. We'll get another push there, and then we'll get some more support, and then it's going to move up after having formed that range. But at the moment, while we're rejecting off monthly supply, and until I see a decent move off monthly supply, that's really going to push. So I think yeah, we did have a few wicks, but I'm not sure if this one. We get a decent move down from that actually, and I suspect that was a monthly supply alert. But your preference obviously is it for it to break the low. That really is where your target should be for a monthly supply, or for a monthly zone. You would want to see it break the low that came after the monthly was created. Okay, so yeah, that's BNB. Link, exactly the same scenario. So again, this I still wanted, like I said, I think with Litecoin, I wanted to get that push. I was hoping to get that final push up into monthly supply here, which we didn't get. But it did push, so I didn't have any aggressive shorts on this from when I did the last update, which was around here. There wasn't somewhere I wanted a short. I think we'd already tested the daily in here, so it wasn't something I wanted to add a new entry on. That was where I was looking for the next one, and it didn't make it up there. And oh yeah, and I did have, so there was a 4 day demand put in, and then because of the possibility of Bitcoin continuing to be aggressive, I did have an alert here for a push into that monthly again, but it's failed. And now we're coming back through that 4 day. Not going to make a 2 weekly supply on this, but we are going to make a 4 day supply. And again, just looking at the breaks of those trend lines. So this, I want to see down monthly demand and back in this consolidation, which really isn't ideal for Link. So yeah, can't say more than that. We've already had a wick down into the weekly, was unable to break supply. So now we expect to go back lower and really hope we don't break this consolidation. But then, maybe we'll finally get that for that $4 entry that I wanted back here, that it just like front ran 8 million times when I was saying I really want it to come down into this zone for a long entry, and then it just front ran it very, very slightly there before taking off. Um, but yeah, so Link's like not looking great. It didn't make a monthly supply, but yeah, also not looking great, and breaking those trend lines. ADA, ADA, ADA. We also made a new monthly supply on this, and this kind of bounced quite hard. It was one of the ones actually that again I was hoping we could be more confident of, because we had I think a 3 month demand giant zone. Um, here, but again, it just hasn't picked up. And now we've got this new monthly supply, just to hide everything so you can see it. We made a new monthly supply there, wicked up into it. So again, I expect it to take out the low of that candle at least. Um, and again, gave us nice short entries. It's now made a weekly supply, and so it's come back into that monthly and the weekly supply and retested in the same at the same level as the daily. So I think I had two entries on here for you because there was one aggressive one if we were going to reject off the local 8-12 hour supply very aggressively. So did get a move down there, but held the new 8-12 hour demand for the second entry, which was this daily supply. So again, it's taken some time and has taken a second wick up into it, but that zone held. And again, breaking that trend line. So a lot of these, really just look like giant triangles, but we're now breaking those lower trend lines. Normally I hate trend lines on crypto, but particularly downside trend lines, because then you can tend to pick up support where you don't expect it. But yeah, with this monthly supply on ADA, I'm again expecting it to go lower. Pole is the final one on this layout, and so pole is what MATIC was. I have copied in old MATIC charts so I know where levels are, and if you go on cointrader.pro, you can actually, even the pole chart shows the history. Unfortunately, the trading view options don't show. Actually, next C I think is the one that shows the most history. But this is basically what MATIC did, and we're now again, just breaking that low, and there was another, possible low here. So it's possible it'll swing fail this level from whatever PA was going on over there. I think there might have been some multiple lows yeah, my next alert on this is down on the weekly. And I don't know, maybe this is just totally off the boil now and just not a major anymore since it's become pole. I have no idea about the fundamentals of this thing, but what I do know is supply and demand, and this mess that we had through here, it's just rejecting every possible supply and it's just showing a massive amount of weakness. So I think I talked about this in my last update as well. This was slightly painful on the re-entries. I think it just didn't after the last update. I think it didn't get back to where I would have wanted to short. It barely bounced. I think some of the others bounced a bit more, but this barely bounced and before the secondary drop. Or maybe it's here. I'm not sure, but it hasn't got even close to where I would have wanted to go. But I already had entries off 5-day supply in here, and then it did this last fake out pump that would have taken out any local shorts, unfortunately. But yeah, so that's just very, very weak. And like I say, looking at 24 cents kind of level as a possibility of a bounce down there. And then finally, how are we doing for time? I guess still pushing an hour, but that's still relatively short given the amount I've covered. Okay, so final one's Dot. Again, Dot gave a really nice entry, I think. Yep. So Dot, I had an entry on 8-12 hour supply in here, and again held. Took a couple of weeks. Actually, had one hard rejection similar to ADA down into the 8-12 hour demand, then came back up, but still held the zone. It's also made a monthly supply up here. And I did have like that higher entry that I put in after this just in case it got a second push, but yeah, has rejected straight down from there. Now has a 3-day supply, and again is just looking quite nasty. So next entry for Dot is starting to be it's back at this 3-day from back when it first existed. So yeah, these aren't necessarily high probability zones, but they're just zones we'll watch for confluence of the rest of the market. So yeah, you're looking around the $3 mark for possible next entry on Dot. But yeah, bias would be more to the short side still, and with the new monthly supply, I would potentially I'll bring that next entry down. So looking for shorts in that monthly supply there. If it gets a retest, I'll do Sol last because that's the only one that's slightly different. Atom, very similar to Dot, now got a new monthly supply here, but also gave a very nice short entry. So we had the alert, short off daily supply here. Again, broken trend. Next level of interest, also down by the $3 mark, similar to Dot again. And yeah, that's a 2-week in there, and then there's a monthly a bit below that. So yeah, hope for these things' sake that they actually hold because yeah, they're really starting to look quite nasty now. So that's Atom and Near. Near was one of the stronger ones, and I wouldn't mind looking again at the BTC pair on this. So again, didn't I think this was another one that didn't come back and get to the level I wanted to short. So I had one day, 1 week supply up here, didn't quite get there. Um, Gave a little bounce, I think, off of 5 day demand, I believe was in here, but again, just didn't make it back up to the supply there. A lot of these are just timing, because you're looking at, how aggressive is the retest. So for me, I monitor all these mainly because when I see they're all at supply together, or they're all at demand together, then it gives good confluence for longs across the whole market. So that's why I monitor these more closely. I don't necessarily, people voted on which ones to follow a while ago, and there's probably better ones these days. But I still, yeah, I don't mind following these just to give that market confluence. Yeah, so near, again, breaking trend, looking at 5 day demand down in here. If it holds, we've still got a 3 month demand here. So the challenge with these is that, they do still have, okay, no, it's a 3 month, it's an indirect demand, so it's not great, but the actual 3 month demand is all the way down there. There has a monthly demand, so there is a local monthly, and what I've said is the challenge on a lot of these is that we came down, we bounced on the monthly, we bounced in many cases back up into monthly supply. So now you're just kind of going, who's stronger, are these guys or these guys? Um, Overarchingly, we've got the lower high, and we've got rejections off here. So the possibility of it going all the way down here. But yeah, the bias is probably for breaking this now. We've had 1, 2, 3 tests and have been unable to make a new high. Um, but like I say, we can still get bounces in the meantime. So that's why we're looking for long entries, or where we might get long entries. But yeah, not necessarily overly confident. A couple of nice lows there. So again, this could just swing fail, take out those lows for a bounce in there. Failing that, we're looking at the 3 month demand all the way down there. And then finally, Sol, which is the only one that's seemingly slightly stronger than the others. But again, it's still in this sort of giant triangle, and it's much more looking like Bitcoin, as you can see, although it hasn't broken that high like Bitcoin has. The main thing here is this, compared to all the others, which pretty much all created weekly or monthly supply, this again has the 2 month demand. So there's a 5 day demand, which I had alerted previously, and it's now also the 2 month level that I've alerted for here, just to see if we get that retest and bounce in there. Even where we are now, so um, I previously had this long entry here, which just got missed. So it is possible we just get the bounce here on weekly demand, just on the top, taking out that low. Um, this was one of the only other ones where the short didn't work. So yeah, it was, I think I put it in there because at that point we were still in a monthly supply. And in fact, we still are in a monthly supply. But it's just like, are we in a monthly supply or in a 2 month demand? Again, it's just that ranging. So you can see that we've got, this is a monthly supply candle. So we're still in that monthly supply, but the close above the 2 month level has flipped to 2 month demand. But I mean, essentially the whole thing's in a range. So none of these are demands and supplies are particularly strong. They're all weak, but that doesn't mean they're not going to get bounces. So we're just trying to bias whichever direction we can. Um, so so yeah, I think I put in another entry for a possible lower high on the 4 hour up here, which hasn't been tested. And again, just because I don't know if Sol's really going to do its own thing, if the whole alt market's going to fall like I'm currently expecting. But yeah, I'll leave that there for the time being, just in case we get a small move off here. But yeah, so the next possible entry for this is the 5 day. If we're going to see this 2 month hold, failing that, like something I've wanted for a while is to get a test on this monthly demand all the way back down at $100. Um, so again, the structure is it's a complex corrected structure, and it's just hard to judge. So at the moment, I just any clean supply or demand, that's what we'll trade. But again, and a lot of the alts have been challenging because we're making like 3 day, 4 day, and 5 day and weekly demands through here, and in some cases 3 day and 4 day supplies now. So like yeah, Sol for example now has a 3 day supply in there. So actually I could potentially move that entry down just to alert the 3 day supply in there. But then it's got a 5 day demand here. It's got so hold on, yeah, we've got a 5 day demand here. We've also got this 5 day actually here that wasn't quite tested at the pink level. but the 4 day just above that was tested. So it's hard to know. I'm struggling a little bit to know like which zones. And you go to the 3 day, and this is a 3 day and a 5 day. Um, but that wick has gone to just above here. So it's hard to know exactly what zones have been tested and what haven't. And that's why I need to kind of really think through what the structures are looking like, because again, we have supply and demand, but then we also have, so we've got an up move, which is retraced. And then, this up move is the next up move. So that the higher low can still, that's slightly exaggerated where that should be because that's above that wick, we can still have a higher low down here. Just delete some of this. But then, within the local structures, we've got here, break, and then another big move up here. So again, the start of this up move, would be the real break of the daily structure here. But that doesn't mean it can't, it can trend down into here easily. But also could bounce, 2 week here, 5 day here. And this is where I have challenges with trying to give entries. Look, the safe entry is waiting for all the way down here, but that doesn't mean it's ever going to get here. So I need to think more about what the structure's doing there. Anyway, yeah, that's all the updates for now. So I will post charts, I think, tomorrow, and maybe do another video on the lower time frames. But post charts at least showing what my new entries are for the majors. And what my preferred entries would be. But just so the only thing I can say is just be very conscious of the breaking of this trend line. I'll go back to the others chart quickly just to summarize. So from an alts perspective, we've got these trend lines breaking. No decent demand really through here. Can still possibly make a higher low, but don't be surprised if we just fall off a cliff down into here. Or, fall off a cliff, it doesn't have to be in one red candle, but just start drifting back down into here because this is not strong demand. So just be very, very careful with your longs, be careful with your spot holdings. I know people just say, oh, hold spot and who cares, and in fact, I was watching someone, quite a famous Twitter person. I can't remember what I was thinking. Was it TOMI? I mean, I was looking at some of the alts. They've talked about one particular coin, and I think they were just saying, "Oh, it doesn't matter. You can just hold it." Because you'd rather they don't want to be buying something that's all the way up here, but if something's that's declined, for example, a chart that kind of looks like that and has declined all the way down here, at least here you're buying low. And then I think I was looking, I think it was at TOMI. Let me go onto the TOMI chart and just kind of thinking, but if you really bought low, and so many of them, particularly a lot of the old school alts that have been around a while, like really are just, I mean, this, 30%. I mean, this, like if for example you bought this around there and you're like, oh, well, it's back to where it started, it's just low, I mean, this is now 10th of the price. So, if you bought here spot and just went, oh, okay, I'm just going to hold it, because how low can it go? Like it's a 1 cent there. Now it's pushing down to 0.01 cent. So it's now, just because it's dropped 90% already doesn't mean it can't drop another 90%. So, my view is don't buy spot holdings and just hold them forever, unless you've got real good reasons to think that the fundamentals are strong. And as you know, I don't follow fundamentals. So, unless you've got really good reason to think that, these are going to recover all their coins, like the majors that have been around a while. But even the majors, you can look at Litecoin and things like that, and people would say, they're gonna, Litecoin even has, an annual demand down here, and it did come back in 2021, but it swing failed the highs. But if we now think it's going to swing fail the highs, it's still potentially going to swing fail this low below $22 back into that annual demand. But don't be holding things thinking they must go back to where they were previously, because they absolutely don't have to. Um, And I also said, like, just a final comment. I think I also just said on some of the alts that those I think that were rejecting 3 months supply, and I'm trying to think. Let me look at. I think KAVA's kind of one of the ones that looks quite bad. Um, I had made a comment like months ago that I think things that were rejecting. So yeah, we had this sort of run December 2022, 23, and I think I said the ones, this isn't necessarily the best example, ones that were rejecting in here like monthly, 3 monthly supply. I said, maybe they're the ones that are never ever going to come back. And then we can see that on some of these charts, that people were loving back in 2020. Everyone was all about KAVA and these charts that are now approaching all-time low. Um, Now in this case has a 6-month supply above. Here, this is probably never going to come back. So yeah, be very, very careful what you choose to buy and hold on to. Um, I learned my lesson on that back in 2017, thinking, well, they're going to come back, and then some of them did, but a lot of them didn't. Most of them didn't. So yeah, don't hold on indefinitely if things are breaking all-time lows and staying down there, just get out. Anyway, that is where I shall end. And yeah, we'll see what Monday plays out. And we're getting decent bounce off there, but we need to get back up higher in here to close the CME gap from Friday. And I want to see if we're going to create a 2-week demand on Bitcoin on the close tonight. Excuse me. Anyway, I hope that video is a bit helpful. Like, it's a little bit garbled and quick, just running through all the different things I'm seeing. So I know if you don't follow me, that's probably going to be hard to follow. Yeah. So okay. So on the weekly, I want the weekly close above 69.030. In the next, how many hours do we have? There we go. 4 hours 35 minutes to then create a weekly demand on this. But yeah, so sorry if this is a little bit garbled, and if you don't follow me, I know it's going to be quite hard to follow. I do intend still on doing the follow-up to my supply and demand video that I put on YouTube, saying how to trade them, because I know some people have been struggling recently because, particularly on alts, because we're not in an up-only market, we're more in a down-only market, which people seem to not notice, which I find quite bizarre. Um, but yeah, so I want to sort of give some ideas on how to trade these, even though there's many, many options, but I keep saying I'll do that and not getting around to it. But yeah, hopefully I'll get around to that as things quieten down towards Christmas. Excuse all my coughing as well. But yeah, please, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and let me know your thoughts. And have a good rest of weekend.